Hi guys, there was an election recently which was on issues like cost of living, NHS waiting lists and immigration. Well, while people perhaps voted on whether they could pay the bills, get important medical care, or on the treatment of asylum seekers and immigrants, we must remember the true victims following the vote. Tory MPs, who lost their seats and the great pain they're going through at this difficult time. Don't they deserve an apology from the likes of Rishi Sunak and Number 10, now that they're forced to downsize or find a job on the board of a fossil fuel company? They're of course the true victims here. However, cynics like Mick Lynch want them to apologise. Can you imagine that?
There were 120 there, but they also had people like Charles Walker who stood down, who wanted to reassure people that they were going to be looked after. Mark Prisk on giving coaching advice for those who are going to look for employment outside of politics. So there was another reason for us meeting there other than Rishi having the opportunity to look us in the eye and say, I'm sorry, which is what he did. He did it several times.
And do you accept his apology?
Well, we are where we are. I mean,
do you accept his apology?
Yes, I do. But
you don't think he should have called the election when he did?
No, of course I don't. In fact, I told him, he phoned me on the Saturday following the election result. And I said, well, I am going to say right out front, the election should have been November. It would have given another few months of a growing economy, people, and give him the opportunity to show himself as Prime Minister for another 6 months. You would have had the NATO summit. You would have had this Blenheim conference that's coming up this weekend.
And
so there's lots of...
been busy in the United States.
Well, do you know, that was an important consideration. But he was going to swan off to cover the elections with his mate Trump.
But are those MPs sorry for the last 3 or 4 years for Liz Truss and all that, the way they got behind some of the most reactionary right-wing politics?
Mick, I spoke with some of them and some said, listen, we didn't help ourselves, right?
Oh God, we didn't help ourselves. You know, the real victims here, of course, are these Tory MPs who've lost their seat. You know, they were expecting to lose their seat anyway, but at least if the election had been in November, they could have reached out to some company. They could have downsized. They could have sold their, £1 million property to put some money aside. They could have prepared. These are the real victims here, thrown under a bus by Rishi Sunak and the Conservative HQ. Never mind, people who are relying on food banks or people who are waiting years for NHS treatment. Never mind these people. The real victims, of course, are Conservative MPs who have been voting for policies like Liz Truss and her mini budget, voting for policies to make people poorer, to run the NHS into the ground. These people are the real victims. It's absolutely insane. And this is part of the problem. They see themselves as victims. They have voted for policies that have made people poorer, and then they turn around and go, why have people voted us out? Look, what am I supposed to do now? I was on a salary of about £90,000 a year, and now I have to go and look for a job. These are the same people, not all of them, but a lot of them, are the same people who would be calling anyone on universal credit a scrounger, or talking about how people need to be forced off benefits and into jobs. There are loads of jobs available. Why are people on benefits? We need to force them off benefits. If people can't get NHS treatment, well, just go privately. These are the same people, and now they're playing the victim. How dare, the public kick us out? The sense of entitlement that these people have. Now they probably realise why they've been removed, because they voted for policies to make people poorer, to run public services into the ground, and people have had enough. But once again, it needs somebody like Mick Lynch to come along and say, wait a minute, shouldn't these people apologise for the damage that they've done? But of course, the penny will not drop. It will not register with people like this. We probably didn't help ourselves by backing Liz Truss. But that's all they'll focus on. Oh, we shouldn't have called the election at this time. We should have waited for a few weeks or a few months later. Absolutely ridiculous. Complete disconnect from the reality of ordinary people. Instead of actually listening to ordinary people, what are you going through at the moment? You can't get an NHS appointment. You can't feed your family. You're relying on a food bank. Benefits are not supporting you enough. Instead of doing that, trying to do something about that, trying to fix those problems, they talk about, well, we should have held the election later. We should have thought about the US election in November. We should have dealt with Nigel Farage. My goodness. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.